Operation Domination is underway. The ultimate game plan to dominate your NFL experience. With your hosts, Dan
you gotta be confident about your Achilles when you show
Thornton.
Yeah, I mean, I got him at
And Adam LaRue. Don't hope to be great and dominate.
Well, all right. Welcome back in Operation Domination. Don't hope to win, be great, and dominate. Make sure you download Operation Domination on your favorite podcast app and check out our video content when you go to our YouTube channel at the Fantasy Football Advice Network at FF Advice Net. Yes, in case you were wondering, my X handle is still at dmater91935. Screw the hackers. Screw them all. They're getting everybody, too. A lot of my friends have been going down. It's brutal. If you guys see a scam out there that says, hey, vote for me for my podcast opportunity, don't click yes. As always, I'm your host, Dan Mater, joined here with Chase Thornton and Adam LaRue. I'm glad to see you guys are still intact on social media.
Oh, yeah. Nope. Yeah, I haven't been clicking around. I kind of take it easy with that. Stay out of my own DMs and that kind of thing.
Panning out well for you guys. Well, here's what we got on the Rocket Docket for you guys today. We are continuing on with the free agency frenzy with the fantasy football impact. We had a couple more trades. We had some more signings from last week that we didn't get to talk about. It'll be a little more rapid fire today. Not as many big names to get into, but some interesting ones right off the rip. And the trades were the most interesting from last week. So Justin Fields gets traded to the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, this is interesting from an NFL standpoint. Hey, Justin Fields going with Andy Reid. Could he somehow resurrect his career? Could he be the next guy to do that? But really, the question comes down to Patrick Mahomes. When's he going to be healthy? And the answer to that right now is looking like somewhere in the first 3 weeks. So does Justin Fields get to start? And if he does, what does it look like, Adam?
He might get a couple, but to your point, I don't think it's like especially long that he's going ahead and starting. I think it's an interesting move because they got someone who provides some value outside of just being the backup for a couple games here. This is a team that I think it's been since 2022 since then they've been able to be one of the teams utilizing the tush push because they're afraid of you doing it or even QB sneaking with Patrick Mahomes. So just being able to throw Justin Fields in there, I think they kind of viewed that as well. We need someone to start a couple games. He, for what it's worth, abysmal passer in a lot of ways, doesn't turn the ball over. So if you just feel like, all right, like we can get the ball in our weapons' hands, we can, use the run game for a couple weeks. And then after that, we have someone who at least is providing non-zero value the rest of the way. I think that, he provides more value to the Chiefs than most other backups would, just in the sense that they're probably not hoping to win without Mahomes very much anyways. They're going to get him back relatively early. At least they can QB sneak with him once Mahomes is back.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to give him more than Gardner Minshew did.
Yeah.
I think especially from a fantasy standpoint. Now, look, last year with the Jets, it was not pretty.
But even then, he didn't really turn the ball over. He just didn't complete passes.
No, you're absolutely right. He only had one interception in the 9 games that he started for the Jets last year. He had about 15.5 fantasy points. And for Justin Fields, despite all of his passing, inefficiencies, that's pretty low for him because he usually ran a little bit more, usually scored a little bit more. We just didn't really get to see that. And the Jets were a complete dumpster fire. It's why, Chase, I go to you a little bit. Like, it's hard for me to believe Patrick Mahomes will be the starter week 1. So if we get to see Justin Fields trying to make that resurgence, kind of like what Adam's talking about, I mean, I don't know what would he have to do in those. Because he's only going to probably get 1 to 3 games. Like I do think Patrick Mahomes will be back by the end of September. So what does Fields have to do to get back on the NFL radar in your mind?
I think he has to take whatever he can learn here from Andy Reid, and he has to show that, he can be a viable passer of the football. Everybody in the league knows that Justin Fields can run the football. Everybody outside of the league, for crying out loud, knows that Justin Fields can run the football. That's not been the problem with him. For his career, he's averaging about 14 completions on 22 attempts per game, 153 yards, and less than a touchdown a game. passing the football in today's NFL. You can't do that. You can't have that. Most teams won't be able to reliably win and sustain with that. So he has to be able to show that he can pass the football. I do like the environment they're bringing him into. Remember, this is a team now that will have an actual run game with Kenneth Walker, we assume. He'll have Travis Kelce back for, an outlet valve and a main target if he wants him as such for a while. He'll have a threat in Xavier Worthy. Nobody knows anything about Rashee Rice or whatever else is going on there. But I mean, there are options there that can help a guy like Justin Fields out, I think. But he is going to have to show that he can not only be a passer, but he's going to have to show that he can make those kinds of reads that, in Andy Reid's system, make the correct choices in that system. We know he can be a dynamic playmaker. We know he can play, off schedule and get out and be crazy and run around, but he's going to have to show that, he can actually run an NFL offense with Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy calling it.
I mean, Andy Reid did have Michael Vick back in the day, and I'm not saying Fields is on Michael Vick's level, but similar situation in the sense of Michael Vick was not an efficient passer, and he was considerably more efficient when he got with Andy Reid later on in his career. So we'll see. I think it's an opportunity for Fields. Interesting from a dynasty standpoint. If you've had him, this would be a good reason to want to stash him away. And even in redraft leagues, like if you're like me, where you punt at the quarterback position time and time again, I mean, Fields might be a streamer those first couple of weeks too. But the real fantasy value, the real fantasy conversation is going to be the rest of this team. Like until Mahomes gets back, I mean, I don't know if it would change where you're drafting guys for season long, but you don't want to get off to a rough start either. Now, here's what he did do. He helped out Breece Hall. Breece Hall was much better with Justin Fields on the field than when he was not. He was running back 14 in the games that Fields started. He dropped down the running back 20 for the year when Fields had to go away. But it wasn't a plus for Garrett Wilson. In 10 games played, Garrett Wilson only had 43 targets with Justin Fields. It's just over 4 a game. Mason Taylor was just behind him with 41. When you put those numbers together, that's where the real progress with being in a new offense is going to have to come from. Because you're talking about, if he doesn't get suspended, Rashee Rice and Travis Kelce, who in his own right, while he's falling down, was no slouch. He was still solid as a tight end one. And then you still have guys like Xavier Worthy. He's way more weapons than he had, obviously, with the Jets. But the issue really here is we've only seen Justin Fields really make one type of receiver relevant, and that was DJ Moore. And that had a lot to do with he just targeted the crap out of him. So even if he's better, he's not going to be single focusing on one type of target because you have more than that to feed in Kansas City. So I think this is where it gets kind of interesting, where maybe you're drafting Rashee Rice, you're drafting Kenneth Walker, you're drafting Xavier Worthy, you're drafting Travis Kelce with the idea that, like, look, September just might not be your month. And that's okay when you're drafting. That is okay. You're not here to win in September. But it's kind of interesting to me to see how this all shakes out. I think I'm more interested from the dynasty standpoint of, does Fields get an opportunity to resurrect his career, which seems to be the pattern that is going around the NFL right now. So interesting trade from that standpoint. But let's move on. Let's talk about Jaylen Waddle. This has explosive fantasy football impact right off the rip. He gets traded to Denver. And I got to say, of the teams he got traded to, wasn't most super excited that he went to Denver. Just was not. Now, in Miami's case, they get a first-round pick back. They got draft day 2 capital back. They got day 3 capital back. Probably the best offer that they were going to possibly get. Now, what Miami's going to do, I don't know. We'll get to that at the bottom of this conversation. Chase, let's go right back to you. Waddle goes to Denver. What's your first thoughts?
Honestly, I think it could be a really fun fit. Now, I'll tell you what I'm glad I haven't necessarily heard yet, and what I do not want to hear is anybody bring up the flippin' J word with Sean Payton. I don't want to hear about the Joker role. The Joker role. He's going to play the Joker role. Forget about that. Okay, what he is going to do is he and Troy Franklin are going to switch off between the Z and the slot, and they're going to move. They're going to be able to move those guys around interchangeably. Well, Cortland Sutton takes the X reps on the other side there. I think that's how this shakes out. And I like that. I don't mind that as a 3 deep setup in terms of your 3 wide receiver sets. I think that could be a really dynamic, really fun way to do things. And in Sean Payton's offense and the short crossers and things like that, getting the ball in Jaylen Waddle's hands, I think would really add a dimension to that team that they've been lacking consistently. We've seen flashes of it. We've seen Marvin Mims do it for a game here or there, but we haven't been able to see them do it consistently. Jaylen Waddle coming in there, I really like what that could do for Bo Nix. It doesn't really change my opinion of anybody else on that team. It doesn't necessarily make me downgrade Courtland Sutton, because I think that there is room there in that offense, in a Sean Payton offense. I think there is still room for that role, for that second role. Again, don't say the J word, but no, I actually think it could be a really fun fit.
The what word?
And,
the what word?
Yeah. Up your...
The first rule of Fight Club
is
first rule of a Sean Payton offense is we just don't talk about the stupid Joker role anymore.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Well, the good news is Jaylen Waddle's not that type of player that Sean Payton would typically put in a Joker role, right? He doesn't usually.
He would rather have running backs with receiving skills in that role than receivers or tight ends. I think with short yardage skills. I think he would rather Reggie Bush,
Alvin Kamara. Yeah, no,
Sproles, Kamala. Yeah.
Sproles. So I would agree with that. Here's what's interesting to me, because when I think of a Sean Payton offense, especially as of late, I don't think of a pass first team necessarily. I think of a balanced West Coast type of team. Bo Nix led the NFL in pass attempts. And if you're sitting there thinking to yourself, like, wait a minute, he did? You don't remember that? Yeah, that's because he still didn't even have 4,000 yards off of it, because it was that inefficient. 612 attempts, gets just over 3,900 yards, only 6.42 yards per attempt, the bigger one being the 8-yard ADOT. They need a player like Waddle. So the problem that the Denver Broncos were having, you have Courtland Sutton, and then you have a bunch of redundancies. Troy Franklin, Pat Bryant. They all play the same role. And what none of them do well is actually make yards after the catch. Jaylen Waddle can do that. I don't know how many touchdowns he's going to get in this offense, but I do know he's going to come in with a role specific to making that passing game more efficient, which he very much can do. And Adam, correct me if I'm wrong. What I'm thinking in my head is that this is going to look like Jaylen Waddle rookie season, where he gets fed, but he became a slot wide receiver. Wasn't exactly what we all envisioned for a guy like Jaylen Waddle, but was highly productive, and that was probably his best time as a fantasy football asset. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I kind of agree. I definitely think, I don't know if he'll be as slot heavy as he was in his rookie year, but he'll be in the slot way more than he has been under Mike McDaniel, where it's been like around 30%, just depending on the season. I think it'll be probably pretty close to 50-50. I think, like Chase outlined, he's probably the two. So if there's two receivers out there, then he's probably, that second guy. But then in three, I think there's a decent chance he's in the slot, or at least he's getting moved around a decent bit. But yeah, I think exactly how you outlined it is what the deficiency is for Denver, that they have a point guard at quarterback. They've got Rajon Rondo. He is not necessarily throwing to make the play. Like, he's not going to be the shooter. He needs someone else to make the play, dump the ball off and make the play. And Sutton can't do that. And Troy Franklin can't really do that. Like, Mims, kind of to your point, Chase, has shown spurts of being able to do that, but not consistently. So unless you're relying on RJ Harvey to be the only guy in your offense that can do that, like, you need a guy that you can just throw to 8 times a game and say, hey, if you get, 15 yards after the catch one of those times, then we're going to have a good day passing the ball. Because, like, exactly what you mentioned, like, 6.4 yards per attempt, 8 yards ADOT. Like, he's clearly not able to just throw guys open down the field. This is the only way you're really going to, improve those numbers, improve as an efficient offense, if you get a receiver who can, after the catch, do those things. So yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense for Denver, despite how much it costs, but probably not the most exciting for Jaylen Waddle.
No, yeah, exactly. Like, look, it doesn't get in Courtland Sutton's way. They can still run the offense based off of it. It's a fantastic NFL fit. Let's dive into the fantasy aspect of it. Because I think whenever a player makes a move like this, people tend, at least at first, to lean on the more excited side. Like, oh, he's getting a boost. He's getting an upside. He's going from a really bad team in the Dolphins, which no question, yes, they absolutely are, to a playoff team that was maybe a quarterback injury away from getting into the Super Bowl themselves. Now, I know that when you have our perspective, doesn't really necessarily matter fantasy wise, depending upon what the offenses that you're talking about. But that's how people think, and that's how they get excited. Last year, Denver had 120 targets to Cortland Sutton, just over 100 targets to Troy Franklin, 71 targets to Evan Ingram. Those was top 3 guys that they targeted last year. So Waddle comes in. Well, goodbye, Franklin. Goodbye, Pat Bryant. You guys are there as backups essentially to Cortland Sutton, and somebody can run the outside treadmill, whenever they go 11 personnel. Here's what I have for Waddle as a baseline projection. Somewhere between 95 and 115 targets, 70 to 80 catches, 950 to 1,100 yards, 5 to 7 touchdowns. I think it's a safe base floor for Jaylen Waddle. That all adds up to him basically being a wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3.
And so kind of exactly what we've seen from him.
Right.
That's what he's been outside of that first year with Hill in Miami, where he was a wide receiver 1. But they never were able to recapture that magic. That's basically what you've gotten from him anyway. So,
yeah, exactly. That's kind of my point, is maybe there's more consistency for Waddle week to week, but overall, I don't think the final numbers are going to look that drastically different. Now, the one caveat I would add to this is that if he's able to really be a yak monster within this offense, which is possible with the West Coast system, the way Sean Payton may set this thing up, we get a little extra efficiency, then we might be talking about a high-end wide receiver too. But he's going to have to be on the well above average end of efficiency in order to pull that off. Not saying it's impossible, but that's what it's going to take.
The ball is literally in his hands for that to happen. Like, he has to be making the plays. The offense isn't going to make it for him. The quarterback's not going to make it for him. Waddle would need to have an insane year. He's capable of it, but he needs to do it.
Yeah, that's because at the end of the day, he's not going to get Michael Thomas in the Sean Payton offense. He's not going to get 140, 150 targets. That's not how this thing's going to work out. It's going to be even distribution. Let's flip over to the Miami Dolphins side of it. This won't take long, but it's just kind of funny to me. Anybody got Malik Washington shares out there in Dynasty? Yeah. He could be the number 1 receiver. I don't know how much to say when you got Malik Willis at quarterback, but Adam, yes, okay, they have draft picks. They're probably going to add a wide receiver, sure. But when you look at the Dolphins, and then you have the whole Devon Achane of it all going on right now, which they're saying they won't trade them. Some people are speculating that's just because people aren't offering them the deal that they want, then maybe they still will trade them. Because believe it or not, even after all these moves, Miami's still in cap hell because they're getting dead capped everywhere left and right. Tua Tagovailoa is going to be $99 million in dead cap hit. Trading away Jaylen Waddle is going to be another dead cap hit to 2026. They're getting screwed everywhere. So they're looking at this people are like, you might have to move on from Devon Achane just to continue to fill out the rest of the roster. If they do that, this might be the least talented offense I've ever seen in my life. But anyway, I digress from that point just for a second. Adam, you look at this Miami team. You look at Devon Achane. He stays on this team. What can the expectation be? Because this is somebody who's getting drafted in the first round come, August.
He's going to have volume until he gets hurt. And when he gets hurt, he's probably not coming back because they're not going to be playing any relevant football past October. That's kind of the situation here. I don't want to be overly harsh, but if I was a Dolphins fan, I'd be starting to look at the 2027 draft. I would fully skip the season. Yeah. This is clearly the team skipping the season. The front office clearly is all right, let's take on all this dead cap now. Let's just absorb all the money now and let's play for 27. That's clearly their mental. So if I was a fan of the team, that'd be mine too. I do not care about 2026. So if you're a player, that's got to eventually bleed into you. So maybe it starts off great and maybe the volume is great for Achane early just because they need to do something. But boy, oh boy, you get hit a couple times, especially at Achane's size. It's going to be hard to want to maintain volume and carry this offense a couple months into the season. I know everyone's looking after their own paycheck, but and he's going to do his best to do that because he wants his money. But mentally, it's hard to just play for yourself. I mean, this is no team to worry about at all.
This is Tank for 2 on crack. That's what it is.
Oh, they're so dumb.
They are trusting the process. Like, we're full Sixers mode at this point.
Woo. Oh boy, are they. And then Chase, I'll cap it off with this to you. I mean, you look at Devon Achane, what makes Devon Achane great from a fantasy perspective besides the explosive is the involvement in the passing game. Well, we've talked about time and time again. You don't throw the ball out with Malik Willis. So how many passing targets are we really talking about with Devon? Like, if I tell you, which he is right now, Devon Achane is a 8th pick in the first round in 12-man half-point PPR leagues at the moment, where's his real value to you?
Oof. I don't. This is an offense I don't want a single piece of. As someone who has a lot of respect for Malik Willis, the person, and was happy to see him, get a second chance, a second act to his NFL career. This whole thing is just so ridiculous. I don't have any idea what this franchise is doing. If I was to Adam's point about being a Dolphins fan and looking ahead to next year, I would be looking elsewhere. I would just be so pissed off. This is a franchise with no absolute direction whatsoever. And so knowing that Malik Willis, what is Malik Willis's upside fantasy wise for you? Because he doesn't throw the football. He kind of runs okay. And he's in the worst offense in the league on a rebuilding team, and a team that has already signaled they're probably playing for a shot at drafting a quarterback next year. If you're playing for that shot at drafting a quarterback next year, what the hell did you sign this guy to $20 million a year for 3 years for? I don't get any of it. But Achane, yes, he's explosive, but I agree with Adam. It's only unless he gets hurt. Because what else are you going to have to defend against in this offense at this moment? Even if they bring in a receiver, that's a rookie. You have no idea what that guy's going to give you. You don't know what you're going to get out of the pass game, even if Malik Willis is at 100% and firing on all cylinders, because he's been absolutely hidden as a passer first in Tennessee. And honestly, and we kind of talked about it before, in Green Bay. So there's no fantasy upside for Malik Willis right now at all, because he has no one to throw the ball to outside of Greg Dulcich and Malik Washington, like you talked about. He's got Achane, but if everybody's keying on Achane, then there's no room for him either.
You are banking on this being an exceptional QB run game to the point that it boosts the running back's efficiency. It is the singular positive outcome for Achane. Only path.
I do not see that with Bobby Slowick and Jeff Hafley there I don't see it happening. So Devon Achane, he's out of my first round consideration. I'm not looking at him as high as he's going to go. So I won't have him anywhere. Not because I don't like the player, but because I'm not going to pay that first round cost for him, knowing that it's going to be a down year for that football team, and he's got a chance of getting hurt. And like you said, Adam, even if he sprains something, he misses 3 weeks, he misses weeks 8 through 11. Why bring him back in anyway? Give the ball to Jalen Wright, that you all seem to hate as well, and you've still got Ollie Gordon, and just play out the string and get your draft pick for next year. What a absolute dumpster fire of an organization right now. I have no idea what the thought process is going on down there in Miami, but I would not, unless I was an out of town fan, I would not buy a ticket to a game in that stadium this season for anything.
They're going to be cheap. I mean, I was just going to say, I forget exactly who said it, but there was, and this was in NFL circles, not in fantasy football circles, but somebody was out there saying that Malik Willis could be the best rushing quarterback in the NFL based on what efficiencies we
could be. I mean, we don't know, because we've never seen him have to play more than 13 minutes.
I'm like, look, I know Lamar Jackson was hurt last year, but come on, like, let's come on, let's not get crazy. To your guys' point, not really thrilled with the coaching staff on top of all of this dumpster fire. So this is a team I'm kind of with you guys. I see them quitting, and here we go. So there's two things I want to end this conversation on real quick, because two of them I think are funny. One, the depth chart for the wide receivers for the Dolphins right now is Malik Washington, Taj Washington, Theo Weiss, D. Eskridge. That's your top 4 wide receivers. And the rest are a bunch of practice squad guys that I don't expect anybody else to.
They do have Jalen Tolbert, though, don't they? They still have Jalen Tolbert. I believe they still have Jalen Tolbert.
Maybe they still have Jalen Tolbert.
Yay, hallelujah.
His contract.
Tolbert.
I'm not sure if they actually re-signed him or not, because I think his contract was actually up this year.
I thought he was back again, but even if he is, I mean, who gives a flying flip? Because it's not like he's ever shown anything. He's been a massive flame out in his career too. So if he's your number 2 or 3, that doesn't do anything for anybody either.
Look, all I'm asking for is that my Malik Washington shares, of which I do have some in Dynasty, can he just turn to Wan'Dale Robinson for me? That's all I'm asking for. Just turn to Wan'Dale Robinson. Just get like 150 receptions for like 0 yards.
60 catches on 190 targets. Yeah.
So, and then the second thing I want to end on was this, because I want to ask both of you guys, who's going to be worse, Dolphins, Jets, or Cardinals this year?
Miami Dolphins. I think the Miami Dolphins are going to be absolutely terrible.
I could get sold. I think it'll be the Dolphins. The Jets, I think, made decent moves. I think they'll still be bad, but I think they made decent moves. And the Cardinals could still figure out a respectable passing game. I don't think there's going to be anything respectable about the Miami Dolphins.
And the thing about the Dolphins and the Jets, they're in the same division. And like, the goal needs to be for Miami, to beat Buffalo and beat New England, right?
The goal needs
that
to be
job one
Jets.
Because you're in the AFC East.
To lose to the Jets.
Who runs the East? It's the Bills and the Patriots. The goal should be to beat them. The goal should be to not be worse than the Jets. But that looks exactly like what they're doing right now, and that's
I think, to Dan, to your point, their goal might be to be worse than the Jets.
Yes, it absolutely is. Arch Manning.
Long term, there's just no direction there. It's God,
Arch Manning, buckle up because you're taking your talents to South Beach. Speaking of the Cardinals looking like they might have a half decent passing attack, in the words of Adam, Gardner Minshew goes to the Cardinals. Now, there's a little bit conflicting going on. So, like, early on, there was a report saying that the Cardinals came out and said, look, Jacoby Brissett's going to be the starter. Gardner Minshew's there to be the backup. And then that kind of got walked back, or at least wasn't an official report. So now it's looking more like, well, this could maybe be a competition. Jacoby Brissett, I know this is a new regime, but Brissett was there last year, showed you some stuff. I have to believe it at least leans towards Jacoby Brissett heading into week 1. Now, I want to hit you guys with some numbers real quick. Brissett in his starts last season, 45.8 dropbacks per start, 40.3 pass attempts per start, 19.9 fantasy points per start. Crazy volume. Here's the league average as the starting NFL quarterback last season. 37 dropbacks, 32.6 attempts, 17.5 fantasy points. My point is this, especially on the volume standpoint. It ain't going to hold. Like, that was a bubble, a perfect storm hit where we got this like fantastic, like Jacoby Brissett throwing the ball 50 times and we were able to live off of that fantasy wise. That's not going to be the game plan, especially early in the season. It's not sustainable in the NFL. So we're talking Jacoby Brissett. We're talking about a healthy Marvin Harrison. We're talking about, Michael Wilson. Is it real? Trey McBride. We still want to draft him as a top 2 tight end. The running back situation, Chase and I talked about last week, how that's a complete and utter mess no matter how you break it down. So we'll just focus on the passing attack on this one. Chase, I'll kick it back to you. When you look at those numbers, see what their situation is, what's your fantasy overall take with what the Cardinals are looking like from a passing standpoint?
Ooh, it's another offense I really don't want anything to do with, and that sucks because you guys know, our listeners know, I am a Trey McBride guy. I love him to death, and he's one of my favorite players in the entire league, regardless of position, fantasy or otherwise. I love Trey McBride. But like you said, they are not realistically going to be able to throw. They're not going to be able to realistically throw the ball 50 times a game again. That's not going to hold. B, with the veritable like parking lot full of used car salesmen that they have at running back position, they're going to try to use all of those running backs as well. But with the drop back in volume, with the fact that we know it's going to be either Brissett or Minshew, and I don't think there's any way it's not Brissett for my money, to be dead honest with you. I think Brissett is a much better professional quarterback than Gardner Minshew. People can debate that however they want. But with the drop back in volume that there has to be, and with the fact that it's Nathaniel Hackett in the offensive coordinator's seat, and I trust nothing about him touching anybody's offense, it's going to make me probably be out on Trey McBride at the cost that I'm going to, like you said, you're going to have to take McBride with a 1 or 2 in terms of tight end 1 or 2, which means you're probably going to have to take him with a second round pick. Early third at the latest probably is when Trey McBride will be probably going in drafts. I don't want to pay that knowing that this is an offense that is steeped for regression. So I'm probably out on just about every single piece of this Arizona Cardinals offense. Dynasty wise, I still love McBride. Dynasty wise, I still like Trey Benson. I can't quit him. Again, kind of like J.K. Dobbins. I'm stuck on broken running back mountain with him, but I'm out on this offense for next year, Michael Wilson or otherwise. There's not a single piece of this that appeals to me right now in this environment.
Well, I mean, that's interesting because Marvin Harrison, despite him being disappointing, Michael Wilson, given how good he was last year. I mean, you're talking about guys who are at least going to be being drafted in the first 5 rounds, probably for fantasy football.
And I will let somebody else draft their asses in the first 5 rounds because it won't be me.
Trey McBride's going to get drafted in the top 3.
That's what I said. He's going to take you either a second round pick or an early third. And knowing that he's probably due for regression just because life is what it is and math does what it does in reality. And they can't throw the ball 50 times a game. So he's probably not going to see the ball 12 times a game again, or maybe he does. I don't know. I can't in good conscience counsel anybody to look seriously at this offense for fantasy next season.
Yeah. One thing, Adam, I would go to you is that what Jacoby Brissett did do for Trey McBride, that I don't think was all volume based, was take the lid off the end zone. I don't know. Adam, what's your take here with what Chase is saying?
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree. I'm not going to be the one taking the risks on these guys, but I don't think this is going to be a disaster class. I just don't think the ceiling exists. Like, I just don't think that the juice is worth the squeeze, to be honest with you. Like, I think Trey McBride will be a top 4 tight end.
Yes.
But I'd just rather have at value a couple other guys. I think, Marvin Harrison will probably have playable weeks. And, we'll see which between him and Michael Wilson ends up being the guy season long. But, I think they'll both have good weeks. I think this passing game will look good at times. I just don't want to be in the position to pick the spots that'll look good. I don't trust Nathaniel Hackett over the season. I agree. I don't think the passing volume is going to keep the floor as high as it was. But there's some really good weapons here. And Jacoby Brissett is a very good professional quarterback who has had a really solid floor on his own, candidly, as a backup, on some really bad freaking offenses. He looked really good when he had to walk in for Washington. He looked really good when he had to walk in for Cleveland. I don't think this will be
really bad when he had to play for the Colts.
Even then, relative to some of the other options that we had at the time, he looked not that bad. To be honest, he is far from being a franchise quarterback or anything like that, but he has a really solid floor. I don't think this will be a disaster. I'm not panicking if I have these guys in Dynasty.
No,
I don't think they'll be worth the redraft value is where I land. I don't think this is going to be.
That's my take. That's my point. I agree with you there. You said not worth the squeeze, and that's where I'm sitting on this whole thing. I agree with you. Dynasty wise, I'm not bailing on Marvin Harrison. I'm not bailing on Michael Wilson. I'm not bailing on Trey McBride. And on this show, I have said many times, I like Jacoby Brissett. I think he is a professional football player and a professional quarterback. And I love what he can do in terms of for a real football team. I do not want to spend the draft capital that I'm going to have to spend to get the usable pieces on this offense, especially for redraft purposes.
And I can tell you right now, Brock Bowers is already going to be my number 1 tight end walking into the year anyway, just given their situation. Okay, let's talk a little running back, shall we? Kenneth Gainwell, he signed with the Tampa Bay Bucks. And we already knew Rachaad White we'll talk about him after this, but he bolted over to the Commanders. So basically, Kenneth Gainwell and Rachaad White, or Kenneth Gainwell's taking Rachaad White's spot.
Yep.
Now, what you can look at, though, is that what Gainwell proved to you against Pittsburgh last year is that maybe he can give you a little bit more than Rachaad White did, at least as a runner between the tackles. He was a little bit more efficient. When I'm looking at Bucky Irving, now being paired up with Kenneth Gainwell, I think some people's snap reaction is going to be not much changes. He already had a pass catching back with him. He's going to be the lead rusher. I don't dispute that. But I do think it changes enough because I do think Kenneth Gainwell gets somewhere between 110 and 140 carries, along with 45 to 65 targets. That would put Bucky Irving somewhere in the 190 to 220 range, 30 to 40 targets. On an offense that has Zach Robinson. Now, you can argue whether or not Zach Robinson is better or worse than John Grizzard, but I can tell you he's definitely not Liam Cohen. Right? So I'm going to go with that math at least. Bucky Irving's another player people got excited about. Now, he was a little bit injured, so maybe there's going to be a little bit of a discount built in heading into this season as a result. He only had 173 carries last year, but remember, that's with a number of games missed. He was on pace for 250.
Only played 10 games, yeah.
Yeah, he was on pace for 250 last year. We're talking about a guy I think needs a little more volume as a pass catcher if he's going to be a top 12 running back, like a lot of people are expecting him to be. And I actually think this hurts his value to some degree. Now, to give you guys some perspective, last year, Rachaad White, now again, he played more games, but he had 132 carries and 42 targets, 18 red zone carries last season. Kenneth Gainwell showed that he was actually the better red zone back in Pittsburgh. I don't know. I'm trending down here on Bucky Irving. Where you at, Adam?
I tend to agree. I think it's scary, and I think the Bucky Irving will, definitely be the lead back coming into the season. I think that Tampa Bay made it a smart decision to hedge their bets to a degree, in the sense that, look, Bucky Irving's the more talented back, and I don't want to get away from he's going to be their number one option, but I think this goes across all positions. Where there are players who are physically limited to one degree or another. And what happens is if they are a little hurt, they are very bad at football. That is Baker Mayfield at quarterback. That is Bucky Irving coming off of his injury last season. He was horrible when he came back. Horrible. Bad. Not good. I don't think that's what we're going to see out of Bucky Irving, but I think that they have realized they need to upgrade at their running back 2 position to someone who that they can trust so that they can drop Bucky Irving's carries so they can keep him healthy and efficient, because he is a very small guy. He is someone whose his athletic profile coming into the draft was one of the worst we have seen. He is very quick on a football field. As a football player, he looks athletic. To me, on film, he looks athletic. Testing wise, was not. And I just think it's one of those things at 100%, Bucky Irving is awesome. At 85%, you don't want Bucky Irving. So I think that they're going to do everything in their power to keep Bucky Irving as close to 100% as possible. And I think part of that is Kenneth Gainwell can be really solid as a receiver. Kenneth Gainwell can do things in the red zone. Kenneth Gainwell has shown an ability to run pretty well between the tackles last season. So I think it makes a lot of sense to back up and do a lot of the things that Bucky Irving does. If you need to take Bucky Irving out for a couple of weeks, you've got a good option. And if you need someone who can just split drives with Bucky Irving, you've got an option. And they will do, I'm sure, their best to figure out what the right ratio is, whether that's 70-30, 60-40, or splitting drives, whatever it may be. But I imagine that part of their thought process is, how do we keep Bucky Irving healthy? Because he is such a massive piece of our offense when he is healthy. But it's clear, it can drop off a cliff really quick if he's not 100%.
Yeah, I mean, you took a 190, he had a nasty shoulder injury, and you saw the kind of dividends from that. And I'm with you. That's what I would be really concerned about. This could be a drive for drive rotation Wouldn't surprise me in the least that winds up being the case, which does that mean Bucky can still be an RB2? Yeah, but probably a low one at that. So it's a real wide variety when it comes to with this move, what their range could be. Let's talk a little Rachaad White, Chase, because he goes to Commanders. So did Jerome Ford. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt's still there. People are still talking about them drafting Jeremiah Love potentially, which I think would, as much as they need a playmaker like Jeremiah Love, it blows my mind a little bit that would still be on the table, being how many moves they just did to amplify the running back room. You kind of make it feel like it's not really the way you're going to go, but there's definitely a possibility. So let's operate on the assumption they don't go to Love route. Krosky-Merritt, Jerome Ford, Rachaad White. What are you looking at in the Commanders' backfield? Feels very similar to Arizona we talked about last week.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we just talked about the idea that Arizona has an entire parking lot full of used car salesmen, and it's the same thing, but on the other end of town over in Washington here. A lot of mediocre guys that are just dudes. And I'm not excited about any of them, and I can't necessarily expect any of them to emerge as an alpha type, especially from a fantasy standpoint. I think that they are going to try to give Bill Krosky-Merritt probably the benefit of the doubt as the incumbent. I think they're going to try to probably make him the number one. But did he show us enough last year that anybody feels really good about that? Then you look at Rachaad White, and Rachaad White is a guy that has always been his fantasy value, not his real life on the field value, but his fantasy value has always been tied to volume. He is obviously not going to get that volume sharing everything with Bill Krosky-Merritt and with Jerome Ford. I think Jerome Ford is clearly the third wheel in this backfield, but Jerome Ford is a very capable ass third wheel. I like Jerome Ford. I think Jerome Ford is, again, a professional football player. And when you call on Jerome Ford, he is going to give you what you need and nothing more. But he's also not going to give you anything less than that. If Jerome Ford is healthy, I think he's going to be just fine when they need him. I think that your choice, in this backfield comes down to, do you believe that Krosky-Merritt takes that job and runs with it? Or do you believe in the guy, to be dead honest with you, Rachaad White, that we have seen be a starting running back in the NFL and be fantasy relevant? I mean, I know that that's not what Washington is watching, but that's what we're watching. Of anybody in this backfield, if gun to my head and I have to pick one, I'm probably going more with Rachaad White based on probably where I think they're going to be going in drafts. But I think people are going to probably overdraft Bill Krosky-Merritt, and I think at the end of the year, it just ends up being this miasma, soup sludge of toxicity that we don't want anything to do with in fantasy. So again, I'm steering clear here. If I have to pick, it's going with White.
Where I think this is different from Arizona is that it's clear that no matter what happens, Rachaad White is the third down passing situation back.
And should be.
Right. Which I don't know if this is better or worse, because, you could look at it one of two ways here. You could look at the Arizona situation as like, look, if you hit on the right guy, he could emerge as the dude because they're all the same. Whoever gets hot, maybe he just takes the job. On the other hand, it could be like, you never hit on the right guy, and there never is a right guy. With the Bucs, it's like, well, I know, especially in half-point, full-point PPR leagues, Rachaad White is in this role. Now, what happens with Jerome Ford and Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, that's going to be what's up for grabs. And clearly they don't trust Merritt a lot, but I think Commanders, if they were being honest, would rather see it be Merritt than Jerome Ford as far as the lead runner goes. Yeah. But I can tell you right this, it doesn't matter who the lead runner is. They're not going to be very, very involved in the passing game. Either way you break it down. So you're begging for touchdowns, whoever the lead guy is going to be. I don't know. Food for thought, for future thought. But we did have Chris Rodriguez from the Commanders. And he decides he's going to go to Jacksonville just to make the baseball tooting conversation a little more interesting, Adam.
Yeah, he definitely did that. First of all, I think Washington letting him walk makes a ton of sense. I think that was where their backfield had the overlap between him and Merritt. So that makes a ton of sense. And I think Jacksonville bringing him in makes a good amount of sense because I don't think that I like Tootin. I don't think that he's someone who you want as a full lead back. And if there's nothing else about Chris Rodriguez, if you want to bash someone into the line of scrimmage for 4 yards per carry for your, kind of boring runs, in the middle of the field, he can do it. He's a solid guy. He's nothing special. There's nothing spectacular about him. But I think that might be perfect for them because I don't think he really threatens Bashal Tutin's job from like who's going to be the lead back type of situation. I think when they want big plays, they're going to go for Tootin. Who's going to be the receiver? It'll be Tootin. Who do they want to prioritize? I think it'll be him. But I think, there's probably a decent chance that Rodriguez gets real carries. They're just not going to be the fun ones. I don't think that there will be anything fun from. I could see that you go with him in the red zone. I think it would be silly to, and I think we've seen from Cohen that he has been one of the guys who will go for the smaller back to get through the smaller lanes in the red zone. I do think that will be the case, and that they will lean with Tootin there. But I could see that one going either way. But I think it makes sense as an inoffensive RB2 who can be a part of the offense, but not necessarily overbearing.
Thank you. Because I can't tell you how many people out there right now are trying to make this really weird argument to me that Chris Rodriguez is going to be the lead rusher of the Jacksonville Jaguars come week 1, which makes no sense. I don't care that he has the ties to Liam Cohen. Chris Rodriguez is your quintessential backup running back, period. That doesn't have anywhere near the upside of a Bashal Tutin. Not even close. I mean, we can talk about athleticism. We could talk about explosion, anything in between. And let's not forget, Liam Cohen now is on a perennial streak making running backs top 12 that we wouldn't have necessarily thought were top 12. Bucky Irving definitely wasn't up there on my draft board in his rookie season being a top 12 running back. There he goes. Travis Etienne, we're trying to figure out, or A-Chain. We'll get into that in another but Travis, who's now on the Saints, we thought he might be the youngest flame out running back since Todd Gurley, and he got into the top 12. Bashal Tutin takes this job. I'm here to tell you, I will bet on him being a top 12 running back with his athleticism in that system. I will bet on that.
Ooh, I would take that bet with you, Dan, to be dead honest with you. I look at last season and we kind of all thought, oh, Travis Etienne, Etienne, HN, whatever. Travis was going to be the runner and Tootin was going to be the pass down back. A lot of people, I think, thought that was going to be the case. And when you look at by the end of the season, yes, LeQuint Allen Jr. had 2 more games played than Bashal Tutin, but he outsnapped Bashal Tutin. LeQuint Allen Jr. outsnapped Bashal Tutin last season, and they ended up with the exact same number of receptions. Bashal Tutin had 3 more targets than LeQuint Allen Jr. So LeQuint Allen Jr. is still there, and we have evidence because they gave Travis Etienne 52 targets last season. We have evidence that they don't necessarily view Bashal Tutin as a passing down running back. Okay, great. So he's probably not going to be he might be the primary guy, but he's not going to be taking the vast bulk of it. I don't think they view him as the all around running back that the fantasy world, myself included, was banking on and hoping on. Then you bring in a guy like Chris Rodriguez, who, yes, is not anything special, but is a short yardage hammer. And where does that leave Bashal Tutin in terms of, what his fantasy value and his role is going to be? Will he be the lead in this backfield? Very much so. I don't believe there's any argument about that because I don't think either of the other 2 guys is capable of being a lead back type. But is he going to be that lead kind of back that gives you top 12 type running back numbers? I'm not so sure. I'm not sure that he doesn't get vultured on the goal line by Chris Rodriguez, and I'm not sure that he doesn't come out of the game on third down for LaQuint Allen. I took Bashal Tutin in a dynasty startup not 2 weeks ago because I was banking on this same kind of thing. I was hoping that he would be the guy in a Liam Cohen offense, and you guys know I love me some Liam Cohen, and you guys know how I feel on that. But this really worries me for Bashal Tutin. The Rodriguez signing just made me kind of rethink a lot of things about how I was viewing Bashal Tutin, to be dead honest with you. Not that I think he's going to overtake him, but I think he could steal enough off of there that, that top 12 run that you've talked about, Dan, might not happen.
So a couple things. One, you know who got touchdown vultured last year and was also taken off the field in passing situations? Travis Etienne, who still had 13 total touchdowns and still had 47 targets for being the guy in between the 20s. You know who he was vultured by in the red zone?
Bashal Tutin.
So this is where I fire back, because the people who thought Bashal Tutin was going to walk in and be the pass catching down back were people who did not do their homework. Because if you did your homework, you knew that he couldn't pass protect worth a lick. And that being a receiving type of back was not really what his forte was coming out of college to begin with. That's not where I had him at. Now, where I thought Tutin may have some value his rookie seasons, because I didn't think Etienne had it in him to actually have a resurgence. I thought maybe Tutin just takes over at some point because Etienne flames out because he's so inefficient. And by the way, he still wasn't all that efficient last year, but just got the job done. And again, I'll go back to still had 13 total touchdowns, still was taken off the field by LaQuint Allen. LaQuint Allen can have the passing down work. Chris Rodriguez can be a battering ram once every 4 games, because that's exactly what he's going to be, because ultimately he doesn't give you a ton. I want Bashal Tutin to be the next version of Jamal Charles. Jamal Charles didn't get a ton of red zone looks. Jamal Charles was not the passing down back, but he was explosive as hell off of 15 opportunities. That's what I want Tutin to be. And that in this system could be enough to be a top 12 running back. We've already seen it happen. So that's where I kind of come at it with Bashal Tutin. Let's move on here, though, a little bit, because we still have some more guys that we want to talk about. We're still on running backs. Rico Dowdle will not die. He won't go away. And I look at Rico Dowdle, and I shouldn't hate on the guy as much, right? He's coming off a back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons against all odds. No one expected anything out of Dallas. He goes to the Panthers, who had just signed Chuba Hubbard to this big contract. We weren't expecting him to be a big factor there. It did like 200-yard games, like back-to-back. Now he goes to Pittsburgh. First of all, let me just get this off my chest, because I've been a big Jaylen Warren, I want to say attacker, not defender, attacker. As far as I never understood why people want to hype up Jaylen Warren to the point where he's supposed to be something more than what he is, because he is what he is by the literal definition of that phrase. But Rico Dowdle has experience with Mike McCarthy. Jaylen Warren, maybe he goes back to being more of a receiving type of back that Kenneth Gainwell kind of took from him last season. That's quite impossible. But I look at this like Rico Dowdle is going to be the lead back in Pittsburgh. What do you think, Adam?
I could definitely see it. I think it'll end up split fairly well. I just think that they'll continue to ride it out with 2 running backs, to be honest with you. I think that they can do different things. To your point, I could see Jaylen Warren falling back into a role where he is more of a receiver, where that Gainwell took from him. I could see him kind of being the change of pace guy, because I think at this juncture, he's a little bit more explosive. Rico Dowdle used to be that for Dallas when he was with McCarthy, which is really funny, but I don't think that's what he is these days. I think he is more of just a really smart, savvy runner between the tackles, and just a guy who I think reads the field fairly well, like as a veteran running back. I just think that they're going to have that combo. Not that, I don't think Jaylen Warren is going to be a receiver in the way that Gainwell was, to be clear. And that's where it's going to be kind of interesting, because I don't think he's that level of receiver, but I'm curious if he, falls into that role a little bit more than he did last season at the very least. But yeah, I'm curious how they split it up. I don't have like the greatest read on this one, to be honest with you, but I think it ends up being fairly split. I don't think that there's going to be a true lead back for Pittsburgh.
Fairly split could be a good way to put it, because just look at their numbers from last year. I mean, Rico Dowdle, 236 carries, and Jaylen Warren, 211. Rico Dowdle had 46 targets. Warren had 42 targets. Yep. Dowdle went over 1,000 yards. Warren was just short of that with 958, and they both had 6 rushing touchdowns. It was very even. And the thing about Dowdle is that you don't pigeonhole him as just a rusher either. Like he's so I'm with you. Go ahead, Chase.
No, I just, they're, to me, weirdly enough, in different ways for their skill sets, but they're interchangeable. Neither one of these guys has to come off the field to be a rusher. None of these guys has to come off the field on passing downs. It's like when we were in high school and the coach would like send plays in with one. There was one position where he'd send the plays in to the quarterback with. That's Rico Dowdle and Jaylen Warren. He's going to be like, okay, well, this is your play or this is your series. I think there's every reason to believe that this is a two-man split, relatively even. And to me, that's a scary thing, because I don't think that either one of them has to be pigeonholed into a role. Jaylen Warren, despite I think all of us thinking of him as a passing down back, is not necessarily has not been any more of a pass catcher in his career than Rico Dowdle has. And I think they both have shown that they can be, the guy, at least for short spurts. So I think that this has all the makings of that RBBC running back by committee, and draft accordingly. Don't jump on any of these guys early, but if they fall to you at a discount, yeah.
Well,
I wouldn't mind either one of them.
I'm here to tell you right now, Rico Dowdle is going to fall a discount. I do believe Warren will be drafted ahead of him as the incumbent, and I'd rather have Dowdle. I'd rather take. Then
I am much more in on Rico Dowdle in that circumstance. I am much more in on Rico Dowdle than I am on Jaylen Warren.
100%. Okay, so there's one last running back I want to get to. And this isn't a guy who switched teams, but Adam, I'm going to kick this to you because it's going to be more of a dynasty situation. And funny enough, I thought this was actually beneficial for RJ Harvey that J.K. Dobbins re-signed with the Denver Broncos. And the reason why I thought it was beneficial, it became very, very clear to me just the way the Broncos handled RJ Harvey being the top guy on the depth chart last year. He was going to get paired up with somebody. And I think it's worked out best for him that it be Dobbins coming back for a couple of reasons. One, RJ Harvey gets to maintain what he is actually good at, which is a pass catching back who can be prolific in the red zone off of that role. Two, J.K. Dobbins cannot get through an entire season healthy anyway. So RJ Harvey becomes a heavy, need to own handcuff. Now, here's what's interesting to me from a dynasty standpoint, which I want to kick it to you, Adam. The second J.K. Dobbins gets hurt and RJ Harvey is the starter, I feel like I need to sell because the value, I think, can only go down from there. Because I don't think RJ Harvey ever really takes this backfield over consistently. I don't know. What's your take on this whole thing?
Yeah, it's been really tough for RJ Harvey. I liked him a lot coming out, and I think part of that was I liked him a lot as a runner, and I thought he could be a pretty good runner for a team. I think what's been interesting with Denver is they've just been really gap heavy, and I just don't know that that's going to be his game in the NFL. And with that, I tend to agree. Like, it keeps a relatively solid pairing intact. Like, they fall into the roles fairly naturally. He'll get a chance probably at some point. To your point, like, I love Dobbins. I hope he stays healthy. He probably won't. Yeah, I think it makes a ton of sense. I think it was very beneficial for Dobbins just to like literally just stay at a team for the first time in however long. And I think it makes sense for the pairing. Like I said, they just fall into the roles really well. And if they're going to continue to be really gap centric, then that works well for Dobbins, and Harvey can just focus on being a receiver, and maybe he can develop into that. Like, I do think he's someone who showed really good vision in college, so maybe he can develop into it. But I think for now, it's just not his game as it stands.
I'm with you. A little unfortunate, but I think you're going to have to thread that needle. For now, I think RJ Harvey's value is exactly what it was a season ago, which isn't bad.
You know what I wonder really quick is if he becomes more of a vulture than he was. Because he was the one thing you have to give him, he was pretty freaking solid in the red zone when Dobbins was down. It was like the only silver lining. Yeah. So I wonder if Dobbins comes back, he's still the main running back, and you get red zone and receiving out of him, and then you have something to actually work with.
That's an interesting point because this team is literally running it back at running back. They've brought literally everybody back. McLaughlin and Bade are both back as well. And I think that, if and when, because we all know it's going to happen, J.K. Dobbins has to sit for a game or 4. And when Harvey moves into that lead role, well, they've still got the guy that they threw to a lot last year, Tyler Bade, to bring in as that third down guy or to spell him. And then they still have Jaleel McLaughlin on top of that. But if they think that giving Harvey a few more looks inside the red zone can keep Dobbins fresh, a fresh or at least a 95% J.K. Dobbins late in the season when they are fighting for the playoffs or fighting for positioning, I think that could be really good too. So I like that idea a lot. I like what you're saying a lot there that, RJ Harvey, I think RJ Harvey's value is going to be better than it probably will be drafted as. I love J.K. Dobbins, but I mean, he's going to be hurt, guys. So protect that at all costs.
Good for him getting a 2-year contract out of this whole thing. Because I am a fan of J.K. Dobbins. Chase, another one of your Packer receivers. I don't know if we can get through a show without talking about a Packers receiver. It just somehow makes its way.
Because there's so flipping many of them. That's the problem.
it just makes a way somehow. So Romeo Doubs signs a 4-year, $70 million deal to go to New England Patriots. Essentially, to fill in the Stephon Diggs role of like kind of being the number one receiver, but you never really realizing it until like the end of the season totals are there. Because they haven't done much else as far as weaponry goes. We'll see what they do in the draft, but I mean, Boutte still there, Mac Collins is still there. Like they got rid of Stephon Diggs, replacing Romeo Doubs. Like Demario Douglas is still there. The whole thing. Patriots room last year. Diggs had 100 targets. Mac Collins had 64. Boutte had 46. Demario Douglas had 43. The guy out of that group, besides Stephon Diggs, that actually excited us the most fantasy-wise was Boutte because he had a couple of big catches and if he had missed some of those games, maybe he was looking like he could have been more of a fantasy asset. But at the end of the day, you were still waiting on a big catch. And also, I've never seen, we talk about running backs, splitting drives. I've never seen wide receivers split drives the way the Patriots run wide receivers, especially between Mac Collins and Kayshon Boutte. Romeo Doubs is a very good wide receiver. All right. Last year, he had 83 targets, 55 catches, 724 yards, 6 touchdowns, and that was a bit of a down year, frankly, for Romeo Doubs. But he's never been the guy. He's never been a guy who showed you that he can just take over a room. Very good possession wide receiver, very good compliment to a potential number one guy. And from a fantasy standpoint, he's always kind of been in that meh territory. Wide receiver 3, you're on the radar, but at the same time, I don't always want to have to start you if I had another option to be able to go around you. But now he finds himself in a situation where the Patriots have other things they need to address. They need to address the offensive line. There's still some holes in that pass rush on defense. If they don't go with a wide receiver early, this could be Romeo Doubs looking like the number one target, paired up with a quarterback who's an MVP caliber type of player. I don't know. Chase, I'm interested to see what your take is for Romeo Doubs next season.
First, I mean, yes, thank you, Romeo Doubs, and your bubble helmet for what you gave to the Green Bay Packers over the past several seasons.
So much crap for the bubble helmet, by the way.
No, listen,
social media just like tear them up for the bubble helmet.
I played college football over 20 years ago with a dude who wore a bubble helmet in games then. Okay, so yeah, I mean, I've got a lot of bubble helmet experience, and I have no problem with guys wearing the bubble helmet. I love it. If a guy feels that that's best for his career, so be it. And I love that it's actually become acceptable in the league, and it doesn't matter if you're a right guard or a receiver or a whatever. I like that guys are not unwilling to take that step to safeguard their own health. But that's a complete digression. So thank you, Romeo Dobbs, for what you did for Green Bay. That said, I like this move a lot more for Drake May than I necessarily do in terms of making Romeo Dobbs anything more in fantasy than what he has been. Romeo Dobbs has always been a wide receiver 4, wide receiver 3 type with high wide receiver 3, low wide receiver 2 upside. And I think that's what he remains here in New England. What I do like about it is that he is a Mr. Reliable type. You know that Romeo Dobbs is going to be where he needs to be, and you know that he's going to catch the ball more often than not when you throw it to him. And I like that he can be that kind of an option and an outlet for Drake May. I think they still need to get Drake May an actual playmaker in that wide receiver room. But this is a franchise that has shown repeatedly over the past, all of their existence that they have no idea what to do when it comes to drafting wide receivers and developing wide receivers. Remember when we were all so excited about Jalen Polk and Javon Baker a couple years ago? Where are both of those guys? Oh, that's right. Nowhere to be seen on this depth chart right now. So Romeo Dobbs, in terms of his fantasy value, I think I'm going to be out on him because I think that the excitement over him being there or him being the guy, the perception that he's the guy is going to lead to him being drafted higher than what I think his value actually is, which is, like I said, a wide receiver 4, wide receiver 3 type in terms of the points per game that he has given you in his career and the performance that he's given you in his career, even as Green Bay's lead receiver. That's what he's offered you as a fantasy asset. I'm not going to want to pay the draft capital that it's going to take to get him on my team for that kind of a return. So I am much happier about what it means for Drake May in terms of his development, in terms of what he'll be able to do in the passing game, than I am in any way, shape, or form thinking that this is going to turn Romeo Dobbs all of a sudden into a lockdown fantasy starter.
I don't disagree with what you're saying. What I do think is a little more interesting. This isn't Stephon Diggs coming off of an ACL injury. And Romeo Dobbs is reliable. Like that's what he is. He's reliable. He's going to be exactly where Drake May wants him to be on the field. And that gets rewarded to some degree. I'm more making the argument of I think he could be a mainstay, higher end wide receiver 3.
But if that's his ceiling,
no,
I don't want to draft him as a wide receiver 2. He's never had 100 targets in his season.
Look, I have not seen, we'll see what happens when it comes summertime, but I have not seen any ADP or any consensus ranking that would indicate that people are actually going to draft Romeo Dobbs as a top 24 wide receiver. That's
very early. It is very early.
It's very early. I'd be very surprised. Very surprised. So here's what I want to end the show on. This is a little bit of a curveball for both these guys. I'll start with Adam and then go to Chase. Because next week, we're going to be talking about quarterbacks. We're actually going to get ready for the draft. So this is going to probably, unless there's some big breaking news over the next couple of weeks, this will probably be it as far as us talking about, free agency and trade talk for fantasy football purposes. So Adam, what's the number one fantasy move that stuck out to you so far this offseason?
Oh gosh. I don't know if I have a great answer for you off the top. I need to think about moves a little bit more. Yeah, I feel like I'm at a disadvantage here because I wasn't on last week's show.
That's true. That is a good point. Here, so I will go first. There's a lot of moves I'm really interested in. Kenneth Walker is by far my top guy. It is by far. And I clearly stole Chase's. The Chiefs, when they have a running back that they're not rotating, that they commit to within that Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid offense, they're a top 12 guy.
Yes.
Like even Pacheco was borderline top 12 running back when they committed to him. Kenneth Walker, who's explosive, who never got utilized enough in the passing game the way that he should, probably will have at least some of that opportunity in Kansas City, at least more so than what he did. Like Brashard, don't get me twisted. Brashard Smith's still going to be the lead receiving down back, but Kenneth Walker is going to get more involved because it's a pass-heavy offense. Just in general, he's going to get more overall targets. You put him on that team, again, Xavier Worthy, Rachaad, Travis Kelce, who's still serviceable, Patrick Mahomes when he's healthy. Play action could be devastating. Walker is not going to have 9-10 guys in the box. And that's something we haven't been able to see. And he's not going to have a Zach Charbonnet breathe. Who's going to split with Kenneth Walker? It ain't going to be Brashard Smith. It's not going to be the ghost of Kareem Hunt. This could be the best fantasy running back the Chiefs have had since Jamal Charles. Like, we're talking about top 12 guys. So that is definitely by far my number one fantasy move. Chase, I'm sorry.
You beautiful bastard. Yeah, you completely stole mine. If I have to sift through the ruins of the rest of the league and pick out one that I think might have the most fantasy significance, fantasy relevance, I'll go with DJ Moore to Buffalo.
Yeah, that's a good one too.
I think that might stand a chance of actually being a move that finally helps Josh Allen out in that pass game. And there have been precious few of those in his damned career, which sucks because obviously we've got one of the most talented quarterbacks in the entire league, and they have never really given him anything to toss the ball to at a position where you're supposed to toss the ball. So if I can't use Kenneth Walker because you already did, and for that, no, I would say, okay, DJ Moore to the Bills is going to be another fantasy significant move. I don't know that I'm still in or jumping all in with both feet on DJ Moore being there, but I think that he has an opportunity to be the best target that Josh Allen has had the opportunity to throw to yet.
If Josh Allen has a guy who's clear cut, they go from evenly distributed to he targets the crap out of that one guy. So I'm with you. That's a good one too. So Adam, you got one yet?
Yeah. I've come around one. I think Kenneth Walker is the correct answer. Two, I will give you one, and this isn't me just doing it for you, Dan. Mike Evans will be my answer.
Don't give me hope.
What I think specifically is really exciting for me about him is that when Brock Purdy was at his best, this team was very good at play action. They have not had someone that they felt like, other than Kittle, that they could go to reliably down the field on play action. And I think that is what Mike Evans is going to be to a T. I think he is a plus replacement for Juwan Jennings as a possession wide receiver, while also being someone who is capable of taking jump balls down the field and being someone who, sans George Kittle, due to his injury, has the size to compete in the red zone. I think that for a lot of teams, he would probably be someone who it's all name. It's just like, oh, he's getting the money because of his name and whatever. I think for the 49ers specifically, because of what they do with Brock Purdy and because of how they operate their offense, are going to be able to make Mike Evans work really, really well.
That's a nice call. Yep.
And gentlemen, to be clear, I think those are the top three. So good job. We nailed it. Make sure you guys tune in back in next week on Operation Domination, where we talk about quarterbacks. That's right. We are getting real close to the NFL draft. Cannot wait. So we lead off the conversation with quarterbacks next week, running backs the week after that, wide receivers the week after that, tight ends, and then we are at the NFL draft. So make sure you download Operation Domination on your favorite podcast app and check out our video content when you go to the Fantasy Football Advice Network YouTube channel at FF Advice Net. We'll see you next week.